Croeso, Dion Kate. I'm very much looking forward to this conversation with you both, no pressure. We're here to talk about Welsh film and many different aspects of its past, its present, and maybe its future. So I suppose I want to start things off by asking you each, maybe a bit of a deep question, but what does Welsh film mean to you? I don't know, who wants to go first?
Go on, man. Just a small question to begin then.
Start
no pressure at all.
Yeah.
Okay, what does Welsh film mean to me? I think, and I'm not dodging the question, I promise, that if we're thinking about what Welsh film is, we need to be thinking what we're actually talking about. Okay, so I think, are we talking about films that have been seen in cinemas? Because if we are, we're really restricting what Welsh film might be. Are we thinking back to Arthur Cheetham and William Hagen, those kind of pioneers? Are we including films that have been made for television? Because, of course, there's a huge canon there as well. Are we talking about films that have been filmed in Wales but aren't set in Wales? So I think, thinking about all of those things, and there are other complexities as well, of course, what that's kind of telling me is that we don't really have a unified identity when we're thinking about Welsh film. We don't have a kind of history that's particularly linear and consistent. I think we have, it's quite a fractured history and present as well, I think. It's a history of some stop-starts, sometimes lots of activity, sometimes not a lot of activity. So that's what I'd say. I'd say it's something that's quite complex, quite contradictory, quite fractured, but I think out of that comes a lot of creative possibilities as well.
Dion?
I'm a bit more romantic.
Yeah.
For me, Welsh film is obviously my culture, my language, my heritage, and I think that's kind of the answer for a lot of people, is that to see the Welsh language or stories of Wales on a big screen is actually a rare thing, but also it's quite an embracing thing. And I mean, I've worked as a journalist for quite a while now, and I've only ever seen one Welsh film at a festival in my life, and that's The Feast in 2021. That to me is shocking. It makes me quite sad. But for me, it's just kind of that idea of we're a small nation, but we've got a lot of things to say. And when we have things to say, they can be quite good. And we've gone from this golden age of the 80s and the 90s where, you could go to London and actually watch Coming Up Roses, Headwind in a cinema at the same time, which is mad. And now it's like, when's the next one coming? And I think that's why we're really here to kind of get to the secrecy of that. So yeah.
Yeah, I quite like that you've got the two aspects there, that kind of really drilling down into a definition, but then that quite, like you've said, romantic notion of, even if we can't define it, I don't know, like for me, I can't define it either, but I know it's something important. It's something that I'm passionate about, and something that's like important both to me personally, but also something that I think has a lot to say to wider film culture, and to interact with film culture elsewhere and film production elsewhere. But I suppose there is that element of it being, as I guess you've both alluded to, is like national cinema, right? And I guess some might think, oh well, British cinema's a thing. Is it not just part of that? No, we know that it's not. But I suppose, do you have any sense of, maybe, like Dion, you've talked about festivals. Do you think there are other maybe similar filmmaking nations that you could compare Wales to? Do you think it's quite unique? Do you think there are maybe, other national cinemas that we can maybe learn from to kind of improve maybe just the visibility of what we already have, never mind maybe getting a bit more of it?
I think definitely when it comes to festivals, you see countries like Iceland, which is a very small and populated country that actually has a lot of notoriety with films like Godland or Not Another Day. There's lots of films that they kind of have this auteur kind of artistic vision, but also it's the idea of making commercial cinema as well that appeals to wider audiences. But I think what we are lacking here at the minute is kind of nurturing people that want to tell Welsh stories and keeping them here in Wales. And you look at Ireland, which is a perfect example. You look at Quiet Girl, which obviously was nominated for an Oscar. Why aren't we still kind of trying to pursue these kinds of things? And you look at a film like Kneecap, which was commercially very successful across a lot of nations and a lot of countries. I think it made over $1 million, I think, for Curzon in the UK, which is astounding to see. And I think that's the thing. It's just trying to find that equilibrium of both sides. But I think in one way, for me, for somebody that has gone to a lot of festivals and seen films from countries that I never thought I would be kind of exploring, we should be able to do that as well. And I think budgetary wise, a lot of these countries might struggle the same like us, but at the same time, if you kind of want to make like a really microcosmic kind of film, it's not going to cost you that much. And I think the funders really need to explore what other countries are doing while also trying to nurture those people. I mean, look at Sweden. I mean, it's a larger country, fine. But Ruben Östlund has won 2 Palme d'Ors. He made The Square in Swedish, did really well, then nurtured it into a commercial film with A Triangle of Sadness, again won a Palme d'Or. I want Wales to win a Palme d'Or before I die. That is my ambition in life. But I think what we're looking at here is that there are models that we should be embracing and exploring more. I don't need to look at paperwork from the past or reports from the past that these have been done. These are actions that need to be looked at now. And they're kind of right in front of you, especially if you're going to these festivals. If you're part of this world, you will be going to these festivals. Why not learn from them? Why not talk? Why not open new dialogues? That's what's needed.
Yeah, I think, the countries that you've spoken about then, I'd agree with completely with the ones that you've listed. I think there are some things that they have in common. I think, small national cinemas that are successful, they tend to have a robust kind of public funding system. They tend to have a really good festival strategy as well. I think the films that are made are culturally specific. I think that they also have very good links with co-productions as well. And I think those countries really too have a very strong sense of what it is to tell a story on behalf of a particular nation as well. And on top of all of that then, of course, one thing that we don't have here is much criticality around film. This is a very rare chance to discuss these kinds of things. We don't have a strong press, do we? We don't have a strong arts, creative industries press where, kind of decisions that are made, funding decisions that are made are interrogated and questioned, which is something that should be part of a kind of democracy, shouldn't it? And kind of a post-devolution world. We'd expect that, and we do have an absence there as well. So I think it's not just about the funding models and the kind of film culture, but it's also to do with the public-facing aspect, to develop policies around distribution, around audience development, to support our wonderful cinemas as well. So I think we need kind of more scaffolding around the whole ecology of film culture in Wales.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think, do you think that maybe ties in a little bit that we're in 2026, it could be argued that Wales is actually quite successful at attracting productions to film here and to, use our facilities, and, maybe bring in crews, but also to employ locally as well. But that we're not necessarily then seeing the fact that it was made in Wales reflected either in narrative or on screen or what have you. Do you think it kind of speaks to that as something that feels like a priority, that attracting outside production to Wales is maybe prioritised over telling Welsh, whatever that might mean, we'll get into that, maybe Welsh stories, and that actually that maybe speaks to the fact that we also don't have, it's almost like where do you start, right? That strong critical culture, arts coverage, all of that kind of thing. How do you think those things speak to each other? Maybe?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, it's very, very clear that the government's priority has been to get big productions into Wales and to use Wales, be that our landscapes, our workforce, our facilities. And that's fine. That is a very kind of economic way of looking at film, isn't it? Yeah. But that can't be it. That cannot be it. If we think back to, I think the first ever film that the government funded was The Big Nothing with David Schwimmer, that filmed a bit in Barry, but it wasn't set in Wales at all. Okay. That wasn't particularly what that wouldn't be our first choice of investment for a newly formed democratic kind of centre in Cardiff, would it? But how far really have we moved away from that, where that is clearly the priority? It's great for some Welsh directors who are directing some of these things. It's great for the workforce. It's great for jobs. But it has to be more than that, because as we know, film has so much more potential than just commercial and just economic. So I think what we need to look at is a bit of readjusting priorities now. You know, we aren't where one would have hoped that we would have been nearly 30 years after devolution, I don't think. I don't know what you think.
No, I think that's the interesting thing at the minute. Obviously, we see these buzzwords of the big companies coming in, HBO, Warner Brothers, Disney, and it's like, whoa, wow, this is great. But what does it actually mean? I think, and I've always said this to a lot of people, but I do feel like if you're going to come to Wales, there has to be an incentive then for more workforce within Wales to actually be allowed to embrace and learn and actually work and be paid for these things. Because I have friends that have worked on these kinds of productions, but they're not from Wales, or they don't even live here. They travel in. And I think the thing is like, if we can't nurture the people that live here to actually learn from these major companies, I think it is a massive issue. And I think there has to be kind of a strategic thing where the government and Creative Wales actually need to speak to these issues. Well, actually, how about you give more people a chance to explore this? And I think, yeah, it's great that we have these major productions, but I really do think that there has to be a lot more to Welsh filmmaking than just using our aesthetics and our facilities.
Yes.
That's the problem, majorly.
Yeah, and I think, you know, something like Havoc, which was very much celebrated, and, you know, there was clearly quite a big publicity machine there with Creative Wales and Netflix putting out press releases, you know, the biggest film kind of ever to be filmed in Wales. But of course, you know, Welsh director, fantastic. Some jobs for, you know, for crew, which is also fantastic. Using some locations, you know, I don't know if people are flocking to the Brangwyn Hall in Swansea because that appeared, you know, I don't think they probably are. But, you know, if we think again about the ecology of the sector, you know, it was a Netflix film, of course, so therefore, you know, no cinemas are benefiting from that. To what extent are cinema goers recognising that as a film? You know, it hasn't been in cinemas, so you've kind of got a dead end there, haven't you, within the ecology? So it goes back to your question that, you know, the money's going into production, but what next? What about the people of Wales and their access to films about contemporary Wales? It doesn't tick any of those boxes. Great for Seven Screen as a production company. I don't begrudge them that at all, but there has to be more, I think.
Yeah, completely. And do you think, you know, we're talking about funding production or attracting production, but do you think there's space then for funding for those kind of supportive mechanisms for distribution, for marketing, how cinemas are supported? Do you think that there is a place for more investment there as a means to support?
There has to be.
Yeah.
I think we obviously work with people like Film Hub Wales and the Nia Wales Project. It really does help our side, especially within programming a cinema. That's kind of the main asset that we have. And I think it's mad to think that it's kind of not a national thing. I've worked in marketing, I've worked with distribution. It's kind of, I've done a lot of things within my work, but the distribution side is something that we really need to look at now, and in a way that we do need a national distributor for Welsh film. It's the most logical and easiest way of actually selling our work to the world and within the UK, I think. There is an example of a film with Glaive, with The Feast. I remember at one point there was a discussion that there was actually going to be a Welsh marketer for it with the distributor, but because of funding issues, it never happened. And I think while there was a lot of kind of feedback and backwards and forwards between all parties, the cinemas, Film Hub and the Nia Wales Project, it really was actually good to be able then to see actual Welsh posters for Glare, and there were elements of it, but there could have been a lot more, even though it was, to me, a successful film released in the Welsh language. If you just think, if you actually had a distributor marketer within Wales that could then work with London and beyond, it would make a lot more sense. And I think that's the thing. The minute I hear there's a distributor involved with a Welsh film, I'm like, well, who is it?
Yeah.
Who do we know that works there? How can we make it better?
Yeah.
And how can we assist? I think that's the thing. Because without a vast distribution of the film, I do really think who's actually going to see this. And it's the same with Havoc. We tried to get Havoc in the cinema and it's like, no. And it's like, okay, fine. But nationally, we really do need just one body that kind of goes with this and sells it forward as well.
it's about thinking about the whole journey of the film, isn't it? It's not just the production, but, you know, how it benefits cinemas and how it benefits and how people will actually see it, isn't it? You know, a film can be fantastic, but if there's no, you know, distribution strategy, marketing strategy, audience strategy in place, then it can lead to a bit of a dead end, can't it?
Exactly.
I think so. I want to pull out Gwyl a bit more, the feast, because I think one of the things that I particularly enjoy about it, I mean, okay, admittedly, I'm a horror fan, we know this, but is the fact that you kind of have this strong horror narrative, but it has very kind of specific, to me, it feels very recognisable Welsh, not even like archetypes in there almost, you know, it's sort of, you've got that kind of middle class represented, you've got, you know, the homestead that is being destroyed, all of this kind of stuff going on in there. But in a way that feels accessible if you're not from Wales and you don't recognise those things in it. So I kind of want to maybe move the conversation to the way Wales is represented on screen or the way Welsh people are represented on screen. And I guess maybe to just bluntly start with, do Welsh films stereotype Welsh people? Or do films about Wales stereotype Welsh people?
I mean, I think what we're a bit besotted here at the minute is kind of going backwards and looking in the past. I mean, 3 prime examples that we look at now is Save the Cinema, Dream a Horse, Mr. Burton. Okay?
Yeah.
These are the films that are like bread and butter, classic matinee films that actually bring money. That's totally understandable and that's fine. And then you think of something like Dream Horse, which Eros Lynn, great director, you know, advocate for Welsh film and all that. And yet then you cast Toni Collette then to play the main character. I mean, I don't really mind who performs these things, but then it goes down the stereotype line for me. It's kind of the same with Mr. Burton. I mean, I can't even remember the name of the gent now, but he's, you know, he's not from Wales. Yeah. He's an Industry, which is a great show, made in Cardiff as well. But I think it's just kind of that stereotypical kind of like, oh, you know, I just don't like it. But at the same time, it's kind of like we live in Wales, but there's the regionality of it as well. I'm from North Wales. I don't speak like, oh, I'm going to the mine today. You know, I don't speak like that at all. And it's just kind of that, it has to be that kind of Gavin and Stacey, South Walian twang and the woodcutch. I loathe it. Me too. But it's just kind of little things like that that just kind of like really irritate me. I understand that these films commercially they do quite well. I mean, Mr. Burton did fantastically in cinemas and it's done really well on streaming afterwards. But I think it's just kind of like, do we really need to continuously go backwards and make cinema, especially decently funded films as well, let's be honest, and be like, yeah, this is fine. This is what the people want. There's a lot of real stories out there, and I think there's a lot of real ideas and the actual concepts of what Welshness is and what Wales is, because we're a very rich, diverse country, and there's a million stories to be told, but we continuously have to look and be like, we'll just make a film about the past. It's fine, and I just can't. I can't deal with that anymore.
Yeah. I think maybe the stereotype thing is linked to the, as you say, the kinds of films that are made. You know, where's the film? You know, kind of the gritty film about contemporary life in Wales today that might be set in, I don't know, Powys or, you know, or Wrexham or Llanfair Porthgwyngyll, you know. So, you know, that are dealing with issues today, which are films that appeal to a broad cross-section of people as well. You know, Mr. Burton very much, I think, appealed to a particular kind of audience. You probably saw this at your box office, you know. You know, my parents went to see it, you know, is that kind of film, isn't it? Very safe. In some ways as well. But these are, you know, I think it's very easy sometimes for issues around stereotype to be, you know, oh, that's how it is. But, you know, How Can You My Valley's got a lot to answer for, you know, all the, you know, films in a back lot in Malibu, but we've been paying the price for that for so long. So, and what does that tell us? Well, it tells us about the power of film to change perceptions as well, isn't it? So, you know, we need these kind of vibrant, special, quirky stories about contemporary Wales to shift the way people see us and to assist then, of course, with things down the line like tourism and so on. So, you know, it's not serving one thing the possibilities and the potentials are endless, but we need those stories, and we need, I think, therefore, some kind of structures that really do develop auteurs for us, you know, for us to have not just these blockbusters that come in that aren't set here, but, you know, small, quite simple, sometimes not very expensive in the great scheme of things, films that say something, that come from a particular kind of vision of Wales and of the world at this moment in time. And then, you know, and for those auteurs to have these opportunities, you know, to go and show them in festivals and so on, and in our own cinemas, of course, as well. So, you know, Art House can be successful. You know, look at Aftersun, for example, for Scotland, and The Quiet Girl, as you said, you know, so yes.
Absolutely. I mean, you've kind of touched, I suppose, on the fact that there is such diversity within Wales. And like, for me, I think, you know, you see filmmakers getting supported at maybe, say, you know, what feels like start of their career or entry level, or, you know, development and all of this, which is great and needed. And, you know, for short filmmaking, definitely. But I suppose it's almost like you've just touched on, Kate. It's like, where's the next stage of that?
Yes.
And, you know, sometimes when I see things that are maybe getting announced, and they either the way they're sort of framed when they're getting announced makes it sound like, oh, new. It's all new. It's all fresh. And you think, I know that name. Like they've been doing this. Where's their step up? And, you know, the deserved step up to the next step. And I guess I want to pull in the Welsh language to this as well, because we currently see one Welsh language film getting made per year. I think maybe there is an element here of how we define film in Wales, especially maybe now. Television is maybe always, or a sort of slightly complicated, what is a film in Wales, but maybe now in the age of streaming as well, there's a little bit there. But as far as cinemas are concerned, one if we're lucky. How do you both feel about this? Maybe it feels like a leading question and an obvious question, but yeah, what are your thoughts on how we improve that situation then?
I mean, to put it in Welsh, to them, it's not acceptable. Yeah. That's the easiest thing to say. I mean, post-COVID now, we're looking at, again, 2021, Glare, The Feast came out, and then we thought, okay, right, there's a momentum here, because we can make universal films that appeal to vast audiences. You know, this thing won awards in Korea, across the world. It actually had an audience, and I think that's the thing. And then we go to A Soon, which, again, really kind of an important film, and I think, you know, the establishment of SLC is something that needed to be discussed a bit more, and then we just stagnated then, and then we had Tana Lloer out, and then obviously we've got Effie Oblena on the way as well, but it's just kind of like this weird, it's just kind of like a tumbleweed sometimes, you're just kind of waiting to hear, and I think because there's not that much of a dialogue to actually understand what is going on sometimes, because I understand productions, they can be quite hush-hush, and that's understandable, but I think people within the sector kind of do need to know, right, okay, this is on the way, you know, this is on the way. But actually, to go back to your question about, to your point about development, I mean, we're looking at filmmakers like Craig Roberts, Rangan Nayoni, Prano Bailey Bond, who made really great films within the Welsh frame. And then where's kind of, I understand Craig has made like a bigger film then with Phantom of the Opera and things like that. But at the same time, that nurturing still needs to happen, because they've made great films, and what happens next to them. But to go back to the Welsh point, I think it just has to be better. We have, you know, I know a lot of filmmakers that are pushing to make films that are kind of going through the process of these applications, and they're just going nowhere. And while I'm really excited to see what the Cinema Cymru lineup development is coming, and what is going to potentially happen, especially with things like Llyfr Nebo, which is a really important book within modern Wales, and I'm very intrigued to see how that happens. There's a few films I'm actually like, okay, right, great, okay, we're going somewhere, but you can give them the money to develop, cough up the rest of the money now to actually make it into fruition, and that's something that I just feel like I'm cautiously optimistic at the minute, and as somebody that runs a cinema, I want more. That's the thing. We have people that want more, and we can't always just go backwards and show old catalogue titles, which obviously we're going to chat later about. But it's kind of the idea of that we need to just give the audiences what they want, and there is an appetite and there's a taste for it. So why stop style all the time?
Yes, I think, it's so important to go back to the cultural specificity, of course. What's more specific, really, than the Welsh language? But as you say, it's been so stop-start. What's the strategy with Welsh language films? Cinema Cymru, obviously, there were 4 films that were announced, I think, in 2024, weren't there? I haven't heard anything about those since.
No.
And then, of course, quite recently, there's been another 6. And I did notice there that it said that this money was 4 films that will be able to go to production within 12 months. So I don't know if that was because maybe, I don't know, as you say, I don't know about the status of those. But looking at them, they look really exciting. There are films from different areas from Wales, different kinds of directors as well. I think some really nice short films have come out of the Beacons, Cymru scheme too. But I've got a friend who works for the WJEC, and they were looking for a Welsh language film to put on one of the syllabus. I can't remember which one now. And and she was asking me, can you tell me, give me a list of recent Welsh language films within the last few years?
Yeah.
They're not going to put Glaive on, are they? And I think that's a difficulty as well, isn't it? Young people recognising films that are from Wales, because something I've had quite a lot of times when people ask me what I do is like, oh, there are Welsh films. And they don't mean just Welsh language, they just mean Welsh full stop, so there's a lack of a knowledge about them too. But, it is difficult, especially when, you've mentioned Hedd Wyn already. That was a film that succeeded in Hollywood terms, didn't it? It can't succeed more than that, apart from possibly winning it. Yeah. But it still didn't get a great distribution deal in England, did it? I think maybe things have changed now. People are more likely maybe to go and see a film in a language that they don't understand. I think the whole kind of Nordic noir, watching The Killing, The Bridge, has kind of it really helped that. Yeah. Although, the amount of people who still go and see a film in a language other than English isn't huge, is it? We know that. But I think I'm kind of cautiously optimistic. But let's see this later films, isn't it, from Cinema Cymru?
I think that's an interesting thing as well, if you want, going back to kind of people wanting to embrace different languages, is the idea that Wales is actually becoming a very massive destination for tourism now. I mean, I live in North Wales, and the amount of different cars I see from Germany, Netherlands, France, everywhere now. Every summer, people are just coming to embrace the landscape, to learn more about the culture, the heritage. And I think that's the thing. We have that kind of entrance into it. I mean, Duolingo-wise, with the Welsh language, is actually quite popular there at the minute as well. And then you have spotlights like Wrexham with McLehenney and Ryan Reynolds. People are coming here. They want to know more about Wales. And I think if that isn't an incentive to kind of explore a market, what is?
I'm glad you brought up the Nordic noir, because it's almost like, it felt like, what is it now, 10 plus years ago, when you had a Gwyll and Hinterland, which was hugely successful and sold to international broadcasters, streamers, whatever it was. Do you think, was there kind of like a missed opportunity somewhere there to kind of, I don't want to use the word exploit, but to build on that, I suppose, because that felt like an exciting moment where there was something from Wales that was speaking to an international, recognisable, genre, but that was quite well respected and well regarded critically, for example. And it feels like that hasn't happened. And I'm always struck now when you get, Netflix are going to put Welsh subtitles on this random Welsh film, and everyone's like, this is brilliant. And you think, is it? Does it matter? Really, in the grand, is that the most important thing? When actually there have been moments where maybe that opportunity could have been built on a little bit more.
It's an odd thing anyway, isn't it? To put Welsh subtitles on something that's in English. So you already understand the language. It's kind of, it's an odd concept, I think, isn't it? But I think with what we have with a Gwyll Hinterland, I think the result of that was S4C and Creative Wales really investing in lots more of back-to-back crime genre television programmes, and it didn't get out of that realm, I don't think, of TV drama, did it?
Yeah.
So we had Craith Hidden, we've had Mudtown, I forget the name of it, Arafin, was it? What else have we had? Cleddau, you know, so there's been Un Bore Mercher even killing, you know, so not killing, keeping faith. So, you know, I think it's kind of stayed within that realm and didn't really transfer anyway to film, I don't think.
That's interesting. Recently, obviously, Delamest
Yeah.
then was also bought by Netflix as well. So it was actually interesting to see an original kind of Welsh, well, North Walian even, project actually go on Netflix. And it's an interesting deal, but nothing really then goes after that, does it? So.
And it's interesting because I was reading an article recently about 2 Basque language films that weren't made for Netflix, but Netflix are showing.
Okay.
We don't have that, do we? We don't have anything like that. And then, you know, the impact of that for the producer and the director has been significant. So it's quite interesting, isn't it? Netflix is, you know, their kind of aggressive expansion, but also they have localizations, you know, local strategies too. So it'll be interesting to see, will we ever get to a point where Netflix might make a Welsh language film?
Yeah.
And that's kind of parking a tank on S4C's lawn in a way.
Yeah, just a bit.
But it would be an interesting thing if you know, is that the next step in a way from carrying things to actually, you know, from Havoc, where we've got something in English, we'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting. Dion, you've already touched on your audience and the fact that your audience wants to see Welsh films. I just wondered if you could maybe speak a little bit more maybe about what audiences are telling you, you know, why is it important for cinema audiences to get to see films from Wales?
I think every region of Wales, I think that interest is there. I mean, even we're showing No Other Choice in the minute, the Passion Work South Korean film, and we're actually getting good audiences, about 50 to 60 people coming to each screening, which is for, you know, for a foreign language film, that's good. I mean, yes, it has hype and it has the Oscar nomination, but for me, every time I kind of program anything that is a foreign language and I get an audience, I'm over the moon. You know, I showed a Romanian film and like 30 people came and I was like, okay, great. But I think when it comes to the Welsh context, it really just helps kind of encourage more people to embrace their culture, I think. But also it's kind of the idea of, I mean, sometimes you'll get older generations that will kind of want to come and see a classic film. But it's interesting at the minute, even with Effie Blair now, which doesn't even have, you know, anything within the media about it yet. I've actually had a couple of emails asking, when are you showing it? I was like, how do you know about this? This is the thing. And that's really encouraging because actually people are excited to see something that they have no clue what it's about yet. And that for me gives me a lot more hope. But people just love this idea of seeing their world on a screen. And I think it's really important. I mean, obviously Mad Fabulous isn't in the Welsh language, but we have audiences that are ready to jump to see that film because, again, it's about Anglesey and it's about a very interesting part of history within Wales that not many people know about. So that, for me, is exciting. And I think my audiences, it's really important to engage with the audience to understand, because they're not going to come through the door otherwise. That's the thing. And just hearing what they're eager to see and what they want as well is really important for me. And I'm just ready to jump for the next film every time. And I can't wait to show more, I hope.
Yeah, I mean, I teach a big first-year module to undergraduates at Aberystwyth University, and I do a week on national cinema. And of course, the students are from everywhere. Lots from England, some from Wales, lots internationally. So I use Wales, you know, to look at national cinema, and I ask them, have any of you seen a film from Wales? It's like Tumbleweed. You know? It's as if they didn't know that they exist. And even, you know, there are Welsh students there who speak Welsh as well. And then after a fashion, they might say, and one did this year, a llyfrgell. I was like, yes, thank you. Then somebody else said submarine, because I think that was on a syllabus at some point. But yeah, then, you know, so, and I show them Glaive and I show them other things as well. And, you know, their minds are blown, really. And they can see then, of course, the possibilities for themselves and their own filmmaking too.
Do you think there's, I mean, this maybe harks back to what you were saying, Kate, about the kind of the infrastructure, you know, where's the critical coverage, the arts coverage and so on. But do you think there's perhaps a little bit of a barrier in the way UK-wide film culture, be that specialist magazines or platform, whatever it might be. Should they have a role or more of a role, or should they be taking more interest if they, I assume, don't really take much of an interest in the few Welsh films that are made? Does a sort of wider UK culture understand, I mean, I guess you've sort of already answered it in a way, really understand that there are films made in Wales and they are at times specific to Wales, and that sort of demands its own attention in a way?
I think you do wish that things like the BFI would kind of look into a lot more. I mean, it was really interesting that a couple of years ago now, the editorial for Sight and Sound was actually talking about Heddwyn, and I was like, because I didn't realise the editor for Sight and Sound was actually from Wales.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh wow, okay, this is interesting. But it's very rare you see these kind of discourses within publications, kind of within radio or anything like that. I mean, I do bits for Radio Cymru, and then the minute the Welsh film comes out, then we're talking about it. But that's, again, within our language. It's not really going any further and beyond. And I think there's people within the sector that are quite high up that are from a Welsh background, and you think to yourself, why do you not want to champion this, or why do you not explore it? And I think, it again comes down to that idea of, when it comes to foreign language film, and I think the UK does it quite poorly anyway. I mean, I massively adore foreign language film. It's part of my writing and something that I've always looked into. But when I go to countries like France or Germany, you can just see a film in so many different languages that is distributed and given a chance. But here you will see maybe 2% of what is available out there within that calendar year, and it kind of, there's a culture here not to embrace it. But I think slowly but surely you do see changes in attitude and patterns, and I think I've learned more from foreign language film than I have from English films. That's the easiest thing I can say and explain, because that's the most, for me, there's a lot of visionaries that have worked in that world, and I do wish that the culture here would improve. But until you have the people that actually have the influence and the power and the authority to do such things, it's just not going to change. And I do hope, as time goes by, that culture changes even more, especially when it comes to Welsh language. We have to embrace the cultures that are within the United Kingdom. Being from Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, there's a lot more to us than scones and tea and corgis and various other things. Let's talk about lava bread and Welsh cakes and, David Iwan. That's what we want.
Because I think it's a shift of mindset, isn't it? Not to be thinking in the traditional Hollywood or even British cinema kind of way of thinking. And as you rightly say, films in Welsh are part, or could potentially, if we get it right, be a part of this huge other kind of ecology of film, of films in languages other than English, isn't it? And does the UK press, even the UK specialised kind of film press, do they do enough? No, of course they're not. But they're never going to, because that's how Britishness works. We know this, don't we? So if we, there has to be some lobbying, there has to be some energy and money behind that, doesn't there? And that links back to issues of distribution and so on.
When it comes to the press side as well, obviously, I was an editor for a film magazine for 5 years, and I would push my team to review Welsh titles or kind of Wales-based films. I think the one that shocked me most recently was kind of working with Opera Cymru on the Tan Lloer, and the press screening, only 2 people turned up, and nobody wrote about it. I mean, eventually, I know The Independent wrote about it and things like that, but at its festival world premiere, only 2 people turned up. What does that tell you? So that's kind of the point where I'm thinking to myself, there has to be a change. And I mean, when I run an independent publication, but within that independent publication, we made sure that everybody's films were seen and talked about. And even with the Soon, we actually wrote a Welsh. It was in English, but we actually did get a Welsh review written for it, because I thought it was really essential and really important. But we need more people having that kind of attitude to embrace these things. And I do think that, again, it comes more down to national distribution, more about marketing, to kind of get these writers to talk about them. Because in a way, we live in a world of influencers, and who needs to influence people is the people who actually write about it. So, you know, that's what I want to see more of.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, you know, there's a degree there of like, we're just going to have to do it ourselves, which, of course. And I want to, I suppose, bring up the, you know, 1994, the book of Welsh cinema was written. And that was 30 plus years ago, whatever it is now. What is it going to take, I guess, to like restart that kind of critical writing, just historical writing, both in Welsh and in English? Because I suppose there's an element of it of to reach even just UK-wide influencers in whatever capacity they're influencing, whether they're kind of, you know, literally influencers in the social media sense or whether they are just influential people. It's kind of writing about Welsh things in English so it reaches them, but also writing so that within Wales, within Welsh language and everything, there is that development of all of that. Why has there been an absence, I suppose, since Dave Berry's book? Or what feels like an absence, and what maybe do you think it's going to take to progress from that?
I think Dave Berry was amazing. And I mean, wow, you know, like his life's work is in that book, which is so valuable to us, isn't it? But as you say, there hasn't been much since then. There has been a bit, but not much. I don't know what it will take, because I think the magic of that book is that it's kind of academic, but it's also written for, you know, the lay reader as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think and that's something really special there. But I do think it's important. Film history is important, not just to read it, but actually to see it, which links back to ideas of archives and, you know, the difficulties around archives with showing things and copyright and, you know, rights and everything like that. But it is important. I don't know how we solve that. There are some of us in different places writing things, you know, but, you know, the world of academia has changed since Dave Berry's time, unfortunately. But yeah, we need, I don't know. I think things like this. Yeah. I think
we'll do it.
You know, this kind of podcasts to be talking about these things often and loudly as well, so that people see the value in it. I don't know what you think.
Well, that's the thing. I think you lead it and then we'll help.
I'm so small.
I mean, for me, as somebody that has written quite a bit, I do kick myself for not writing in Welsh. That's something that I've kind of always thought to myself, I've not done enough on my side. I mean, obviously, with Rhaeadr Cymru, I do my best on that side. But I think we really do need to kind of reflect on the last 30 years, definitely, because if we cannot reflect on the past, we can't move forward. And I think there are positive parts, but there are negative parts to the journey that film has been on in this period of time. And you know, I worked with Joy Euro a couple of years ago to actually develop like a TV program and a book about Welsh film and its influences. They kind of didn't go anywhere, but we still kind of bashing on the door for it, because it's important that we do that. If we can't if we can look at what we've done, what kind of future do we have? That's the biggest question. But I think these kinds of conversations are important, and I really do think that more people need to just discuss Welsh film more. I mean, I've contemplated a Welsh podcast myself a long time ago. Maybe I should do it now. I don't know, but not to plug anything. But I think that's the thing. It's just like, what can we do? Because if the people that are working within this industry and dealing with it on a daily basis, we're the people that can actually provide the change. You know, even if people above us don't really see that at times, I think the people that actually want this to work are the ones that can provide the change, and I think that then will lead into something more important, I think, and maybe a continuation of Dave Berry's book.
Well, it's interesting that you say the last 30 years. I mean, that would basically be back to the referendum and devolution, you know? So that would be like post-devolution film, wouldn't it? I mean, is that something want to be writing, or is it something that we'd feel, oh gosh, you know, that there have been missed opportunities here, you know, what would, you know, the headline be there? It's an interesting proposition, isn't it?
It would be quite damning.
Well, especially seeing, you know, 97 in that year, you had Twin Town, you know, you had House of America, you had Darkland. It felt as if that we were on the cusp of something new, but we clearly weren't, were we?
Yeah.
No, I definitely, I feel like that. And I think that's the thing, even my dear friend Emir made a lleill in the early 2000s, and I thought, again, that was a very interesting kind, not because he was my friend, but it was a very interesting point of time, especially when it came to the music and kind of the industry within Wales, and it was bilingual. What? Yeah. You know, what, we can make a film in both languages together? That's crazy. But that, you know, you think to yourself, there was a momentum there in that period. We had Mark Evans and Emerson obviously making films as well, but then it just goes again, and it's literally like a roller coaster, but it's been going down. Yeah, slowly going up again.
Hopefully we're on the starting to go back up again.
I'm ready for a big thing.
Okay, so I mean, you've both, I guess, this is what the whole conversation has been, maybe, but to sort of wrap things up, you know, talked about the state of play currently. You know, we've talked about the importance of knowing our film history and being able to see that. I started with a big question, I'm going to end with a big question. If there's like one thing, or one or two things that you think you want to see as the future of Welsh film, whether that's policy, whether that's a type of, you know, whatever it might be, what is it for you, you know, as a person who loves film and a person who loves Welsh film? What is it you want to see from the future of Welsh film? No pressure.
It's hard, isn't it? I'd want to see lots of money in development. I'd like to see a Welsh distributor. I'd like to see money behind marketing. And I'd like to see us think about a film as not just the production of it, but the whole ecosystem of it that can then benefit our cinemas, and that we have Welsh citizens who understand, can recognise, and more importantly, see themselves on a big screen, because I think that's kind of what it's all about, isn't it? And then, of course, those films would also win the Palme d'Or.
Oh yeah, obviously. Yeah. Exactly. Oh yeah, you've kind of already given us yours.
Well, I want a Palme d'Or winner. I think mainly for me as well is that the idea of better restoration of what we have and understanding of who actually owns these bloody films. This is nice. Talk about this all the time. Every time we see each other, we talk about this. Yeah. But that is one of we have to preserve our past, and it's just not there at the minute, even though there's little interesting things happening. So the fact that we actually got to show There Was a Book in the cinema last year made me so happy. You wouldn't have, so fair play to Cardiff Animation for doing that. That is one thing. I think nurturing, we just have to nurture the next generation. We have to develop the people that are living here now. They don't need to go to London. They don't need to go to America. If we actually have the infrastructure here to do it, they can make easily up to 5 films. Look at something like Yorgos Lanthimos in Greece, made a ton of films in Greece, great recognition. Then he went to America. That's fine. Give us a couple of films, whoever you are, and then you can go. Yeah, exactly. But still come back home. I think that is the essential for me. Everything that Kate said. It's just, we can do better. I know we can. But we really need to look at ourselves really hard at the minute and say, right, where do we go from here? And start. That's what I want. And a Palme d'Or.
Yeah, and a Palme d'Or.
And a Berlin.
All of the awards. Yeah. Just all of the awards. That's all.
Basically, Perfect. Don't care about an Oscar. Maybe.
That's the last one, no.
Yeah.
Dion a Kate, diolch o galon am heddiw. This has been such a great conversation, and hopefully for anybody listening, it's the start of a much bigger conversation that we can keep having. So yeah, thank you both for today.
Ymlaen gyfeillion.
Ymlaen.